Thank you for having me. So clinical genomics in general is the idea of taking genomic data, so whether it's 23andMe, a foundation, or something that's done at a clinical research hospital, gathering that genetic information, and then comparing it to phenotypes, so clinical outcomes. That can be how someone responds to a specific drug, how someone responds to therapy or treatment outcomes. So having both sets of information, so having your genomic information and having your clinical information is incredibly important for a number of things. It's important for drug discovery groups. So any pharmaceutical company would want to know um, what types of patients there are and how patients respond to their specific therapy so that they can improve their therapies that they develop. But also, as they have clinical trials, you want to get the right patient to the right clinical trial and the right therapeutic at the right time. And the way you do that is by understanding who the patient is. And that can be learning more about their history and their family history, or it could be about learning more about their genetic profile. And having that combination of genetic information linked to how they actually perform in a clinical space is incredibly important. So what I'm going to talk about in my talk at the Snuffles group is really how do clinical research hospitals play a role in that? There's many companies in industry that have approved genomic tests. Memorial Sloan Kettering also has some genetic tests that we are proud of, and I think what's important is finding ways to collaborate to work with these external companies and work with other research hospitals to get the maximum amount of data that you can. And the reason why you want a lot of data is because a lot of times we're starting to use machine learning models that can mine through this genomic data and make comparisons to say, okay, so we see this specific mutation and we see this specific outcome on this specific therapeutic. What can we learn from that, and how can we improve our precision in developing therapeutics and in developing treatment pathways even outside of therapeutics? So that's why it's very important to me. I think genomics is one component of Pharma 4.0. There's many things that are happening in parallel. There's an improvement in organic chemistries and improvement in large molecule development as well. So I don't want to overstate the importance of genomics, but that being said, there has been a revolution in the ability to sequence whole genomes or exomes and get a massive amount of information for roughly $1,000, where it used to cost $1 billion before to sequence a genome. So if you now have compressed our ability to capture information down into a single $1,000 test, that's a lot of information, and that information is what's driving this idea of precision medicine. So designing drugs specifically for one, it could be one group of people, or it could be actually one individual person themselves. There actually are cases where there's therapeutics that are designed specifically around one specific person's mutation. These very custom therapeutics. So that's why I think it's going to contribute to Pharma 4.0 in the future. And I mean, to step back, in cancer specifically, there's been tremendous progress in curing certain types of cancers. Things like leukemia, for instance, have a much lower mortality rate than they historically had, whereas there's some cancers that are still largely intractable, and we're still working on improving the survivability. So anything we can do to chip away at that using precision medicine and genomics, and that ever-growing data set of how people perform on certain therapeutics linked to their clinical genotype is going to hopefully help improve how we treat cancer. That's why I think it's important.